Growing up in the 90s, it was always a battle of the N64 versus the PS1 between us school kids. At the time, I didn't know anyone who had both. It was either one or the other. Those were the days. I was always a PlayStation boy, with the Final Fantasy series being the crown jewel of my collection, the reason that the PS1 was the best. But those other kids had their own ammunition to throw my way. Mario 64, Smash Brothers, Golden Freaking Eye, and of course the Legend of Zelda, Ocarina of Time. They just wouldn't shut up about it and would spend hours trying to convince me that Link's latest adventure was far more epic than that spiky-haired Cloud. At the time, I would have nothing of it, but 20 odd years later, I guess it got to me because I finally gave Ocarina of Time a shot. The reviews were, and always have been, absolutely incredible, and believe it or not, but it still holds top spot in the Metacritic rankings. I had no doubt that this game would be great, but what I wanted to know coming into my first playthrough ever was if it would still hold strong today. Let's get into the review and find out. You start the game as a young boy living in the Kokiri forest, named Link. Obviously, you're soon summoned by the great Deku Tree, who is the guardian of the forest. Link is told that an evil man wishes to conquer the world and that he must stop him to save the land. The narrative takes Link throughout the region, all in an effort to stop Ganondorf from obtaining the Triforce, which is a powerful object that grants wishes. The key factor that makes this storytelling so interesting is that after a certain point in the game, you can travel back and forth between time. The two time periods are 7 years apart, and not only do you get to see firsthand what the world has become, but Link is also older, stronger, and able to do many things that he wasn't able to as a child. This journey just felt big and epic at every stage, right up until the final confrontation. In terms of story, Ocarina of Time is probably my favourite in the entire Zelda series. I'll admit it, on a 75-inch TV, the Ocarina of Time and the N64 in general doesn't look so good, but I obviously can't hold that against the game. What it did make me crave is a HD remaster for the Switch, which I'm surprised they haven't done yet. With no voice acting or lengthy dialogue sequences, the quest still manages to feel epic, which is partly due to the cinematic nature of many of the key scenes. Ocarina of Time is also loaded with atmospheric music that does a great job in immersing you into the many different locations, from secluded desert towns to bustling cities. The short tunes created when playing the ocarina itself cemented a place in my head more than once. I can only imagine myself humming them constantly if I played the game back in my school days. The N64 controller is always something that confused the hell out of me as a child. Even now I find its design strange, even though it works surprisingly well. The controls in Ocarina are definitely worthy of praise. I'm talking about the Z targeting system, which was a massive innovation to gaming as a whole. By holding the Z button at the back of the controller, you're able to lock onto enemies in combat. Yeah, we see this every day now, to the point that it's an expected mechanic. I mean, just think how hard Dark Souls would be without being able to lock onto your enemies. This mechanic really added to Ocarina's gameplay, as it made it much more possible to strategize your attacks rather than just running around hacking and slashing. With various tools to use in combat, multiple types of attacks, defensive options, and of course being able to strafe and dodge around your enemies through targeting, Ocarina of Time's combat is brilliant. With that said, this system sure has been refined over the years for the better. There were quite a few times where it automatically locked off at the worst of times, or situations where I had trouble locking onto enemies or switching my target. But hell, no one's going to get it perfect the first time around. Still on the topic of controls, the jumping mechanic is also worth mentioning. There is no dedicated jump button here. Instead, when Link runs off an edge, he will automatically jump to the next platform, and this works very well most of the time. The other times being is when I just wanted to drop off a ledge. Instead, Link would naturally jump to his doom. But for the most part, I welcomed the removal of manually jumping with open arms, because I suck at jumping. Exploring the lands in Ocarina of Time was one of the most impressive aspects of the game. The central point is the Hyrule Fields, a large expansive open area, and from here you can access every other location in the game. For me, the best part was trying to uncover all of the secrets, and I'll tell you what, they are everywhere. Whether it be in a dungeon, a town, or even an oddly placed rock, chances are that there is some secret behind it. Quite often, uncovering these secrets are quite challenging and will take a bit of thought and experimentation, which makes it all the more rewarding. The travelling back and forth in time also enhances some of these puzzles. For example, to access a hidden area, you may need to plant a seed when you are in the past, then travel forward in time when the plant has grown. Heavy exploration is key in Ocarina of Time due to the rewards that you can uncover. In true Zelda style, one of the big things you'll be looking for is heart containers, but there are plenty of other worthwhile items including stronger equipment, special tools, and of course finding and obtaining the 100 Skulltulas, which are basically golden spiders hidden around the world. Then there's the massive amount of mini games such as fishing and archery. There seriously is no shortage of extra things to do. I thought that I discovered quite a lot on this playthrough, but I just know that I would find loads more if I were to play the game again. Now there is a lot to praise Ocarina of Time about, but perhaps the very best aspect of the game and something that still exceeds the quality of modern games is the crazy good dungeon design. There are several main dungeons that you have to work through and each are lengthy, expertly designed and most importantly, challenging. Some of the puzzles will take a lot of thought and experimentation to complete. I managed to get through most of the game by myself but had to resort to a walkthrough on a few occasions. If you ask me, Ocarina of Time provides the perfect level of challenge, something you don't see much these days. Most of the puzzles and challenges presented are excellent, but there are a few frustrating ones that I felt could have used some tweaking, such as the stupid whirlpools and the battle against Darkling. But hey, you can't win them all. Each dungeon also concludes with a boss fight, and these fights feel epic. They all require a specific strategy, and while not overly difficult, they are well designed and complement the game nicely. When I was young, I remember going to a family friend's house and being asked to help a young boy complete a level that he's been stuck on for weeks. Having not played the game before, I was useless. In fact, I was even holding the N64 controller the wrong way, as it was one of my first experiences with the console. Since then, I've heard a lot about this brutal water temple. Coming into the game, I knew what I was in for, but I managed to get through it without as much difficulty as some of the other dungeons, but I did feel the whole unsettling feeling when working my way to the temple quite amusing. How did you find this dungeon, and which dungeons did you have the most problems with? Let me know in the comments. After all these years, I'm glad I finally did it. The game that has been on my must playlist for nearly 2 decades, The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. The hype was massive, my expectations were massive, and it's easy to see why this game was so big back in the day. Exploring the huge world with Link and trying to uncover the many secrets was a standout for me, but I felt the very best aspect was the incredible dungeon design. And while obviously dated, the visuals and the audio were great, and the cinematic style helps deliver a solid Zelda story. Back then, the Z targeting was revolutionary, so I've got to make a mention to that, even though it's clear that this mechanic has been refined over the years for the better. If you're one of the people like I was who never got around to playing the Ocarina of Time, then do yourself a favor and play this classic. It doesn't look like we'll get a console HD remaster anytime soon, so the easiest way to play it would probably be on the Wii U Virtual Console. I'd like to know your story behind Ocarina of Time. When did you first play it, and have you played it much since? And what was the most difficult dungeon for you? Let me know in the comments. This was Hellfire RPGs, thanks for watching. If you liked this, hit like and sub for more RPG content. See you next time.